to give you just a brief glimpse of a class that I have coming up in April, and it's going to be called Starry Night Part 3. Yes, Starry Night Part 3. I love the Starry Night set. What we were given to work with and the beautiful quilt that came of it was just fabulous. But of course, I had to go one step further, and we did a second Starry Night. So what we're going to do now is part 3. We are going to incorporate embroidery, some new tools, and we're going to make this Starry Night the best yet. So come along. Okay, we're back. What I wanted to show you is the two versions or iterations, I think that's called. It could be that too, of our Starry Night that has come before what we will be doing in April. Now you can see this is my original Starry Night, and I used a very, very dark green, almost looks black on the camera, which it probably does, and I chose to use a white fabric. Why I chose that, I don't know. I have two equal opportunity sharing small dogs and one big dog, and they're all black. So needless to say, I ended up taking stock out in lint rollers to keep this going. But I absolutely love this. It was such a great learning experience for me and everyone else, and it was so much fun. Now, I just want to kind of briefly go over some of the tools that we received with our Starry Night kits. And the first one, which I think is a must-have, is a 16-point crosshair ruler. And I'm hoping Sew Steady comes out with a big version of the 16 point because we do use it on a lot of items. The other thing that they introduced us to was the star connector. I've seen so many uses for this, and I've used it in multiple projects. So if you have the opportunity, it is available on sewsteady.com under What's New, I believe. So get yourself one and you will not be disappointed. You'll use it for a lot of things, not just your Starry Night. As we look at these blocks, what you're going to notice is I didn't do 2 levels of template. I only did 1. And I did that mainly because of time constraints while I was doing this quilt. But in the end, I'm not unhappy with it. I'm really thrilled with how it turned out. So this is my Starry Night number 1. And then what we did was we did a Starry Night number 2. And on the number 2, I didn't template at all. What I did was I used Derwent Inktense pencils and a little fabric medium, and I colored in the stars and moons that were in the Starry Night. Love this. To me, this is a great baby quilt. What little child would not love this? I shouldn't say child, because it's the mom that's going to love this in the nursery. The colors are soft, they're childlike, and it is a beautiful size quilt. And I want to show you this block. This is one of my favorites. One of my favorite blocks. I love these big old circles, and you know what a great feel that is. We can use it in a whole lot of different projects. The other thing that I found really good, and I'm just going to bring back my original one here, for my backing I used fat quarters. I had a whole pack of fat quarters that I did not have earmarked for a project, what a great way to make your back on your quilt as you go, and you know that they all coordinate. So that was a really, really good thing to pick up on. So I'm going to put this here. And now what I'm going to do is show you what we are going to do in part 3. And here is my first block in part 3. I'm going to bring you in a little closer. I want you to be able to see this. Now with this project, we are going to embroider our blocks first, and then we're going to add ruler work to them. Okay, we're going to use some new templates, and we're going to use some of the templates we had with our Starry Night. You know, we're going to embellish things. We're going to make beautiful frames around them. There's so much opportunity here, and what I want you to see is just how pretty this stitched out. This stitch out was with what is called a bean stitch. Now, I'm not a big embroiderer. I've really not done a whole lot of it. I have a great machine that has not been getting used to its full potential, that I'm so excited I can actually do that now with the Starry Night embroideries. So what I did on this one was I used what's called a bean stitch. Now, I've never heard of that before, but I understand it now. What is really awesome about the bean stitch is that it really locks in those stitches if you choose to template. The other thing that I just want to touch base on, and before I bring you into the other room and show you how to start making these blocks, is that we have size options, which is really, really nice. When we did our first two, we didn't have a size option. It was just what we were going to do. With the embroidery, we have 4 different size options. So if you want to make a smaller quilt, you just use a smaller embroidery. If you want to make a larger quilt, use a larger embroidery. And speaking of embroidery, let's go ahead and get ourselves into the other room where I have my embroidery machine set up, and we'll take a little look at it from there. Okay, let's talk a little bit about our fabric and marking said fabric, and our batting, of course, and backing. Normally when you think of embroidery, you think of having a stabilizer behind your fabric. I have found this is not necessary when I am embroidering a quilt sandwich. So for this project, I've chosen my quilt blocks to be 18 by 18. And I am actually using an 8 by 8 embroidery size, which gives me a lot of extra room out in the perimeter to play with my templates. So the first thing I'm going to do is I am going to go ahead and make a crosshair. Okay, and it's just one simple crosshair in the middle. Half of 18 is 9, and I am using my chalk liner. Okay, which I have taken out, brought home, taken out the powder that was in it, and I have replaced it with the Ultimate Pounce powder. One word of caution, and I do caution all my students about this. The Ultimate Pounce powder can leave a ghost shadow, okay? And It's going to wash out if you do have a ghost shadow in, but one way to get around having that ghost shadow on your fabric is to spray it several times with a starch or starch alternative such as Best Press. What that will do is that's going to create a barrier between your fabric and your marker. I'm using a darker blue, it's called cobalt blue, and it is texture wave fabric, which is just happens to be one of my favorites. And I'm going to go ahead and make a halfway mark down the center. I'm going to line it up, and I'm going to make another halfway mark down the opposite center. I always like to line up a line on my ruler with the center line that I've already placed in there. That way, if it's off by just a little bit, it's not going to matter. Now, obviously, you don't want your fabric to be way off. And what I mean by that is you don't want your lines to go like this for several reasons. One is it's not going to give you an even border to work in. But most importantly is you're going to end up with your fabric on a real stretchy bias part, and getting it into the hoop can cause some real problems if you're not on your straight of grain. So I've got that done. I'm going to now take my backing fabric. Yeah, this is another fat quarter bundle, and I just couldn't see any other use for it. So I'm using it for this. And it just makes the backs fun, and I like being fun. Normally I would go ahead and press this. But if you don't, it's not the end of the world either, because now I'm going to put a layer of batting down. And what I'm using is wool batting. Wool has a higher loft. It's much softer. And I just happened to have a bunch of it and thought this is a great project to use it on. Experiment with the embroidery and the wool batting. And you know what? It works like a charm, and it gives me that nice loft that I like so much. Now I'm going to take my embroidery hoop, and what I want you to notice on most embroidery hoops has a vertical center, one mark here, and a horizontal center here and here. But what you're going to notice is that horizontal center is not centered on the hoop. And the reason being is because the back of your foot needs extra room up here. So therefore, it's going to be right on where the center of the embroidery falls, not necessarily where the center of your hoop falls. And what we want to do is we want to line up our lines here, our horizontal and our vertical line, and then what we're going to do is take it and put it down with the lower hoop first. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my lower hoop, I'm going to go ahead and put it under my quilt sandwich. And we're going to move it around with the upper hoop as well to make sure that our lines align with the vertical center and the horizontal center. So we have 4 little places we want to line up. Now, if I were to look at my hoop from underneath, my hoop is not going to sink down into the outer hoop where it's at. So I just have to scooch that down a little bit. And again, I want to keep everything nice and aligned. And there we go. And down, whoops, Yeah, I told you I wasn't really, really, really proficient at embroidery at this point. So I think I'm going to need to loosen my hoop up just a little bit more here. And that's okay. Alrighty, let's line up again. Perfect. Now if we can just push it down into that lower hoop, we'll be in really good shape. There's the top. Now I'm just checking my alignment. Everything looks really good. If it's off a little tiny bit, you know what? It's not going to matter. It really isn't, except that I just got it off again. So, third time's a charm, right? So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to set this in here. And I'm going to, my hoop's not moving. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get this set in here. And then we're going to come back. The other thing I wanted to mention is to follow your instructions that you're given with your embroidery machine. The instructions are written by people who are experts in their field, and they can walk you through the process much better than I can. Although we're very fortunate to have some educators at So Steady that are really proficient with embroidery, and you can always shoot off questions to us. That's one of the really nice things about this platform. Almost there, guys, almost there. Okay. And I think we've got it now. There we go. All right. We are in. Now my only chore now is to go ahead and countersink the hoop a little bit. What that means is you want the hoop, the top hoop, to come down just a little bit here. And what that does is it makes sure that your fabric is on the bed of your machine and each stitch is not pulling that fabric up. And you know what? It looks really good. Now, another thing you do not want to do is you do not want to tighten this drum tight. Because if you do, what's going to happen when you let it out of the hoop is all of the fabric around your stitching is going to crinkle up. And nobody wants that. So, we've got ourselves hooped. We've got our center vertical line touching the center here and the center here of our hoop, and we've got our horizontal. Here is the center and the center. Remember, this is important. This is not at the center of the hoop. It is at the center of the design. And we're going to show you more of that when we get in to the machine and put it on and take a good look. So just to review real quick, I have my top fabric here. I have my layer of batting, albeit wool. It's going to give me a little more loft, but you can use any batting you wish. And I have my crazy background here. So I do not feel the need for stabilizer. I did not use it in any of the blocks that I've previously stitched, and they stitch out beautiful. What I'm using is I am using embroidery thread on the top, and I'm using 40 weight thread on the back. I'm not using the real light bobbin thread because this back is going to show. And quite honestly, the 40 weight thread, when you're stitching out the bean stitches, looks gorgeous on the back. I've tried both, and that is the direction that I've decided to stay in. But remember, you don't have to do things the way I do them. If you find a way that's more satisfying to you, please use it. You are not going to insult me. Everybody has their own favorite methods and things that have worked tried and true for you. And that's how I'd like you to do it, because it's a fun project, not a frustrating project. So we'll see you again at the machine very shortly. Okay, we're back now, and I have pulled out my embroidery lookbook, and it is the Starry Nights ruler work and embroidery lookbook. So what comes with it is this USB stick. Make sure that there we go. Make sure that I'm focused in. And you will find all the embroidery designs that are in this book are on this little embroidery USB stick. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put that in my machine. There we go. Now the lookbook in the USB stick, I should say, comes with all of these different formats. So you can have the one that you desire, the one that you need will be in here. What's really great about that is some people are really lucky and have more than one embroidery machine. Yeah, I'm not one of them, but it does happen. So if you need different formats for different machines, they are all right here in one handy location. There's over 675 embroidery designs on the USB stick. When we open the book, we're going to have projects that are here to create embellishments on clothing, make signs. There's even a purse. So there's a lot of different things that we can do with these designs. It's not just the quilt that we are going to make. And each design, or I should say each page, has 2 blocks on it. And then, of course, it has all of the different designs, border designs, corner motif designs, and block designs. What we're looking for today is block number 5. I've already done 4 blocks. So today I'm looking for block 5. Now I made some little notes here to make my life just a little bit easier. And remember I told you that each design was available in multiple sizes. We have the 15 by 15 inch design, which is the same as the original Starry Night quilt blocks. Then we have a 7 3/4 by 7 3/4 design, and that's going to be 190 by 190 millimeters. Then we have a 5 3/4 by 5 3/4. In the embroidery world, these are called 8 by 8, 6 by 6, and 4 by 4. And I just wrote down how big those designs are in the way of millimeters. Okay? So if you want to go ahead and do the math, it's all there for you. But chances are your machine is already working in millimeters and not in inches. We've got some beautiful border designs on these blocks right here. And here they are. So now I've gone ahead and I have put the USB into my sewing machine. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull you up here a little bit and see if I can get you in just a tad bit closer without too much reflection. What I need to do is I need to choose my USB, and here's all of my blocks. You'll see I am going to use block 5 today, And I'm going to use the VP3 format. There we go. And now my particular machine is showing me pictures of all of the blocks. These blocks are available in just a regular stitch out and also a bean stitch out. The bean stitch out I think I touched on before, and what the bean stitch is it goes over each stitch 3 times in order to make your templing so much easier and be more confident because you know it's not going to fall out. Okay, so I'm looking for block 5, and this one is 188 by 189, and that's going to be my 7.5 or my 8-inch block. And it's going to have 4,432 stitches. Okay, I'm going to go back to block 5. Right here we've got our 8 by 8. I'm going to choose the one next to it, and it also is an 8 by 8, but it has 9,764 stitches. That tells me that this is the bean stitch. This is just a regular stitch out with 4,432 stitches. So that's a great way to figure out whether you're doing a bean stitch or whether you're doing just a regular stitch out. The thread that I am using for this project, and I'll just go ahead and come down here, and I will back you out a little ways here. This is just a regular I think it is polyester. Yes, it's a polyester embroidery thread. And this is what I'm using on the top of my block. This is a 40 weight cotton, and it is in the same color family, but not the same shade. Doesn't have to be. It's not a big deal. And I am using that in my bobbin. It's always good practice to make sure that your bobbin is full when you start an embroidery design. So I've got a new bobbin and I've threaded my machine. I am going to now, and each machine is going to be a little different. I'm just showing you the way my machine works. I'm going to stop and hold it. And that's not the one I want now, is it? Okay, we're going to come back here. This is the one I want. The block 5. I was looking at the borders down here. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to, there we go. We're going to place that. And that is going to fit perfectly into my 200 by 200 inch. There we go. 200 by 200, not inch. I'm sorry, millimeter hoop. So I've got my hoop here. I'm going to swing you around a little bit. There we go. And just to recap, I've got my vertical center line lined up with the center line indicators on my hoop, horizontal line lined up with the horizontal indicators. Remember, this is not going to be at the halfway point of your hoop, it's at the halfway point of your stitching. So I'm going to go ahead and I am going to tell my machine I'm ready to stitch it, and it's going to go ahead and calibrate that arm for me, tell me to attach the hoop, which is what I will do next, and then we're going to get it in there. I would say a good portion of the time your machine is going to bring your needle right into the center of the design, not the center of the hoop. I'm going to move you for just, I'm going to move you here, but I'm going to put you on hold for a second while I do. Okay, I just didn't want you getting seasick from taking a ride. That does happen. Okay, I'm going to tell my machine, yes, this is what I want to do. And then I am going to also tell my machine, well, no, maybe not, but you can, if you want to stitch basting stitches around the frame of the embroidery that we're stitching out. That is a good practice, I think. So I've gone ahead, I've picked my design. I like to pick up my bobbin thread manually before I start. It's just a quirk I have, one of many, unfortunately. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I am going to start my machine. And here we go. My machine is telling me to go ahead and cut these threads off. I'm going to hit my start button. And here we go. Beautiful. Those stitches are gorgeous. I love the roll batting underneath it. Now, this stitch out is going to take approximately 10 minutes, and I'm confident you don't want to sit here for 10 minutes just watching my machine embroider stars. But it is doing a beautiful job, isn't it? Right there. Those stars are forming. So I'm going to go ahead and we'll stop this video at this point, and then we will come back after this is all stitched out. We'll take the embroidery hoop off. We're going to take this into the other room for the sewing machine portion. So far we have not done anything with our sewing machine. So I will meet you back here shortly. So here we are. We have completed the stitching, the embroidery. And you'll see I still have my crosshair line here and here, lining up again with the center of the design, not the center of the hoop. So here's my horizontal line, here's my horizontal line, vertical line, and vertical line. And look how beautifully it's placed in here. So now it's time to take the hoop off. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and loosen the hoop. Just slip it out. It comes apart a lot easier than it goes together. Okay, and we'll just set that off to the side. So what you're going to notice at this point, we have a lot of space around the perimeter of the design that we put in, and that was done by design. It is done so that we can take our templates and our rulers and our marking equipment, and we could come up with some awesome design to hold this beautiful Starry Night block. So my design is 8 by 8. My block is 18 by 18. Now you might notice I've got some little indentations and wrinkles here from the hoop. At this point, it's perfectly okay to go ahead and press your block down. And I know somebody is thinking this. When we do that, we're going to eliminate the crosshair that we put onto the project. And yes, we will. And that's just the way it goes. But don't worry. You'll see here we have the centers of these stars all the way down to tell us where our center vertical line is. And the center of these stars from left to right to tell us how our horizontal line, where our horizontal line is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this over, I'm going to touch it up with the iron, and then we're going to talk about how we're going to place some marking lines for our design that's going to go outside of our motif. So if you hold on, I'll be right back. Okay, so I've taken the silver to my ironing station and I ironed it down, and you'll see I have absolutely zero ghost shadows from the Ultimate Pounce powder. I did put another layer of Best Press on because I am going to be making some more marks. I just thought it would be safer to have that extra layer on than to not have it on. But that's kind of the way I roll, suspenders and a belt. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to move this one out of the way for now. And I have another one here that's a little bit smaller. It's going to be easier to film, easier for you all to see what's going on with it. So the first markings I made on this particular block were made with our brand new circle crosshair ruler. Yeah, it's a circle. Can you guys believe it? This is just so awesome. When I line this up on my stitched block, what I want you to notice is how the center groove, I guess I'm old hippie, I'll call it a groove, anyway, goes through those stars perfectly. And it does it in all 4 sets. So I know that I have now realigned myself with the perfect crosshair. I'm going to take my chalk liner, which fits just beautifully in these grooves. I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to make some little lines from the center, not from the center, but from the edge of the embroidery out. So now if I want to, I could take a ruler and extend those lines, which I like to do. But what you're going to notice is that I've got a little dot right here. I'll pull you in a little ways here. And let's make sure that we're well adjusted. You'll see that little dot. That little dot is something that I'm going to use just a little while. And that's going to be for the design of the outer ruler work. So I'm just going to go on both sides of it. I'm not going to go ahead and go over that line because I want that, or over that dot, I want that dot there, but I am going to go off on the other side of the dot. There we go, and one more. Now, you remember that I had a 16-point crosshair ruler that came with my Starry Night. And it lines everything up beautifully, but sadly, it's just a little too small. So no worries. I'm going to go back to my round crosshair ruler, circular crosshair ruler. Now I'm going to line up the 30-degree lines or the 45-degree lines. I'm sorry, 45-degree lines, okay, on the vertical center and on the horizontal center. Once I have those done, I can come in again with my chalk pencil and make these marks. And that's all I have to do is just come in here and twist a little bit and make that mark. So now what I've got is I've got an 8-point crosshair. I'm going to take my ruler, I'm going to lay it down, and I'm going to extend the lines out. Again, not drawing over my little dots that I made, because those are going to be used for the design that we're going to put on here. Okay, and there's 2. Here's number 3. There we go. And number 4. And we will have all 8 of our crosshairs marked. You know, we could take our larger crosshair marking tool out as well, and I'm not really sure where mine ended up, but it's not really ready. It's not readily available. And you will see that in this particular size, the 12.5-inch 8-point crosshair ruler, and I just found it. Let me grab that. There we go. This is going to give us more than enough space to elongate our reference lines. Okay? What I like to do with my reference lines is I like to number them. So I'm going to start up here with number 1. I'm going to pull you back out a little way. Here I'm going to put number 2, number 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Okay. Beautiful, right? Well, we've got some things that we can do, which is really exciting. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take out my Star Tail 2. Now, because this is a smaller block, I'm using the 1-inch size. And if you look, when we line that up, it's not going to go over any of our stars. It might come close to them, but it won't go over. And that's what we want. If you want the star tail to be further away from these stars, just go ahead and move that template up so that your dot is right here. Why am I mentioning that? I'm glad you asked. Because we have a lot of room that we can play with outside of our embroidered design. So maybe on this one I want to come up a little further. So we'll see. And if I do, it's going to be on all 4 of these reference lines, the vertical and horizontal. And you know what? It's going to be fine because it's going to fit with the design that's going around in my head right now. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to move you back so you can see the sewing machine, and we'll get started on this. Okay, we are back, and I'm going to adjust you so you can see exactly what we are working on. The foot is the most important spot. We're just going to, oh, no, I'm going to go ahead and keep it out just a little bit. There we go. So here's the vertical crosshair. Here is our little dot, and I am using the Starry Night Star Tail 2, the 1-inch. Now we have all kinds of different ones. If you want to use a different one, oh, by all means, please do. One of the things that I want to talk about, though, is how to prepare our templates for use. With this particular design, I'm going to be stitching and flipping and stitching. So what I have done is I have taken out some stable tape dots. And this is a relatively new product we've got. There's 72 dots in a package for $20. You'll see it's a lot of dots. And you don't really need to have 2 or 3 in one spot. Where I put my dots or my stable tape is where my hands are going to be holding that template. Remember, we don't want a death grip on that template because then nothing is going to move. Okay? Just nice and firm, but not heavy. We're going to make sure that template stays in place. So now what I am going to do is I'm going to line this up. And when I line it up, I'm using this center line to line it up. Oops, this center line, I'm sorry, I'm looking at it upside down. This center line to line up the template. I'm going to guesstimate, okay? And when I say guesstimate, the more we work with our tools, the more accurate our estimations are going to be. For example, the 1/4 inch here. If we take a look, by golly, I got it right on. So we're going to take and set our needle down right there. And here we go. And then we're going to lower our foot first. Make sure our template is on the vertical line, and then we're going to lower our needle. And like I said, if it's not perfect exactly, it's not the end of the world, because remember, we're going to be trimming this block. So what I have in here, I have the embroidery thread that I used on the embroidery. And on the back side, I have my 40 weight cotton thread. To me, it is the perfect duo. Okay, I'm going to stitch towards me because I want you to see how this is going. And I will pull you in just a tad here, make an adjustment. Oh gosh, I'm sorry. I'm probably making some of you car sick. Okay, here we go. I like to take my first stitch in place, and the reason being is it helps us to get going nice and smoothly. Worth mentioning here, we are making a curved shape. Our sewing machines only sew in a straight line. So if we want our curves to be nice and smooth, the best thing to do to accomplish that is to stitch smaller stitches. The smaller the stitches are, the more smooth the arc will appear. Okay, let's go take this out now. I mean, isn't that cute? It's adorable. And I could just come down here and do my next one here. But I want to turn my template over, and I want to make this into a very pretty ribbon. So I'm going to realign my template right here on that center line, and we don't have to worry about our thread anymore because we're already locked in. But again, I want to make sure that I'm going in smaller stitches to make that curve appear smooth. And the key to this is keep your speeds steady if you can. And I know you can do that. Move your hands and your feet in sync with each other. After practicing, what's going to happen is this is going to become second nature to you. Isn't that adorable? I love it. Absolutely love it. Now, it's not going to look as heavy as the bean stitch because this has 3 layers of stitching on it. Whoops. It's not going to look as heavy as the bean stitch because it has 3 layers. But that's okay. It doesn't matter. Now, I'm not going to break thread. What I'm going to do next is I want to get myself to this dot. That would be the next dot along the block. So I want to get from here to here. I want to do it in something that's a little different though. I mean, we could go right ahead and do it in a straight line. I'm not sure I'm going to like that though. What I want to do is I want to be sure that what I'm doing is going to either mimic the top of this rotation or it's going to come out from the top of that rotation. And then I want it to end up right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my spacing gauge and I'm going to make the space. Okay, I guess I should tell you which template I have. This is the Mini Wave 1. These are new templates available. And again, here's the spacing gauge. There we go. You don't have to hold this thread back anymore. And I really should put some stable tape on here. Now I'm coming out around that ribbon that I just put in. And I'm going to come all the way down to my next mark. Again, this is a wavy type line that we're using. And so in order for it to be nice and smooth, we're going to take small stitches. And we're going to come right to that dot. There we go. So now we've connected this line with this line. Now, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take a second away here and I'm just going to bury these threads. Actually, I'm going to show you how I bury my threads because some of you may not know this. Burying threads is not difficult and it's not anywhere near as time consuming, as some people want to think it is. So here's my tails. There's my overhand knot. I'm going to put my needle through it. I'm going to bring it down towards the top of my quilt square, but I'm going to leave approximately 1/8 of an inch there between the knot and the top of the fabric. And the reason that we do that is so we can get the knot that we have through the batting. If you make that knot sit right on top of that fabric, you can't bury it. It will be there forever. So this way you get a really clean look and your thread's gone forever. And isn't that a nice idea? Love that. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead, we're going to do the second ribbon. Now this ribbon's going to be a little different than the first one in that we actually are going to make it facing out instead of towards the center. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to lift my foot, and actually I could probably go one more stitch. There we go. Just making sure we're exactly where we want to be. Line ourselves up and take that first stitch in place. The key to beautiful stitches is learning how to get your hands and feet to coordinate. It's really not difficult, it just takes a little bit of practice, that's all. Here we go, and now I am right back where I started. Don't forget, whenever you take your hand off your template or you start moving things around, please make sure that your needle is inserted into the fabric. Okay, so here we flip that template around, and we're going to go taking it nice and easy to get started. I always tell people it's like driving a car. You don't just slam the gas pedal down when it's your turn to go at a stoplight. You want to start off at a nice, even, slow pace and work your speed up to where you're comfortable. Some people may be comfortable with a lot of speed, others not so much. I'm one of the not so much bunch, but I'd like to see you do what works best for you. To me, that's what's important. Not the way I do it, but the way you feel most comfortable. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to take our mini wave 1 again. And I'm going to start it at this point this time. If I started here, what's going to happen is it's going to come down right over the top of this ribbon. I don't want that. I want that ribbon to sit on its own. So if I come here, what's going to happen is I'm going to come from the top of the ribbon and bring my stitching down into this area. I'm also going to make sure you can see it. I am also going to go ahead and use my spacing gauge here to make sure that I have my good 1/4 inch. And there we go. I'm going to move you back now to where the needle position is, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to stitch to the next dot. And I think my foot hopped up. By golly, it did. Okay, so now we're going to come with our wave. And we're going to come all the way to that next dot. And that's exactly where we want to be. So now I'm going to make a 3rd ribbon here. And I'm going to continue doing this all the way around this block. And when I get that done, I'm going to take a look at it and see if there's something else that we can use to make it even a little more embellished. But there we go. I hope you can see that. Here's our little ribbon right here, and here's our wave that's going to be kind of like a bunting with, and this is the cord that's holding the ribbons. So I'm going to go ahead and do one more. You'll notice that the this started number one, our vertical line, our ribbon was facing in. Number two, it's facing out. So this is an odd numbered reference line, or number three. So what we're going to do is we're going to face it in again. Now the machine I use is a Singer 301. No fancy anything. It's just a machine that straight stitches. I'm lucky the feed dogs do drop on it. But I love this machine for ruler work. It has a superior stitching ability. Okay, there we go. Now I'm getting myself up to speed. Remember, this is a journey. We need to enjoy the journey, right? That's what I always say. I like to enjoy the journey. A lot of people think of it as the reward is in getting where you're going. My philosophy, the reward is in getting there. Okay, so now let's see where we're going to come here. And you know what? We're going to actually have this is going to actually intrude just a little bit on our ribbon. There we go. And it's hardly noticeable. And we're going to come up and we're going to come all the way around and head for that dot yet again. Okay, you'll see I put my needle down before I took my hands off of the template. And there we go. We're just going to continue this all the way around. We may be adding some other embellishments. I would be pretty confident that we will be adding some more embellishments on this. But what I want to do is I want to thank you so much for joining me for this sneak peek of Starry Night Part 3. Yes, I love Starry Night, and I am so happy that I'm going to be able to bring you the embroidered version. Now, when we're doing the embroidered version, if you would like, please feel free to put a template fuse on the back of your top fabric and put a reveal fabric underneath it, because with that being stitched, we have our threads secure enough to template them. The other thing, if you would like, is to also use your Derwent Inktense pencils if you choose to do that. We have many options available to us, from the size to the technique to the templates that we have, and maybe some templates we don't have yet but would like to get. So please join me. Let's swing among the stars and do another awesome Starry Night project. Starry Night Part 3. Until we meet there,